Welcome to Phesily. Dive deep into rock and roll history with us as we explore Elvis and the Colonel, an insider's look at the most legendary partnership in show business. Discover how Colonel Tom Parker endeavored to save Elvis Presley. Hit subscribe and join us for more thrilling tales from the world of music legends. Greg McDonald, a notable figure in the entertainment industry, has recently penned a compelling new book titled Elvis and the Colonel, an insider's look at the most legendary partnership in show business. The book delves into the life of Colonel Tom Parker, who passed away in 1997. Known as the mastermind behind Elvis Presley's meteoric rise to fame, Colonel Parker's legacy was tarnished by accusations of exploiting Elvis, often referred to as the poor country boy who ascended to the throne of rock and roll. However, McDonald reveals a different perspective in the twilight of Parker's life, highlighting his deep affection for Elvis. He loved Elvis like a son, McDonald reflects. Despite the swirl of negative press, Colonel Parker chose not to pen a tell-all book to clear his name. This decision stood firm even amid the surge of allegations against him. McDonald's inspiration for writing this book came after watching Baz Luhrmann's film. He felt compelled to share the truth about this complex and often misunderstood relationship. Having worked closely with Parker and known both him and Elvis personally, McDonald brings unique insights to this narrative. Presently, he oversees the management of Parker's estate, continuing to influence the show business world. Many see the Colonel as a villain, but imagine if Elvis Presley were here today, standing in this very room. If anyone dared to speak ill of the Colonel, they'd be shown the door in an instant. Their bond was strong, despite the complexities. Near the end, their relationship became strained. Elvis was struggling, and the Colonel, deeply concerned, could see it. McDonald explains, Elvis was just 42 when he passed away in 1977 at his beloved Graceland. The once teenage heartthrob, famous for his magnetic screen presence and iconic hip movements, was by then only a shadow of his vibrant self. Plagued by bloating, chronic aches, and battling insomnia, he was visibly worn out from the relentless touring. Those close to Presley were aware of his escalating reliance on prescription medications, and Colonel Parker was no exception. McDonald highlights the lack of suitable support systems for stars like Elvis during those times. There were no Betty Ford centers back then, no reputable rehab facilities that a star of Elvis's stature could turn to. They simply didn't exist. Elvis often secluded himself at Graceland, disappearing for weeks. It wasn't a healthy environment. People believed that getting him out and about, back on tour, might break his cycle of seclusion and dependency. The Colonel often urged him to pull himself together, McDonald shared. But this was Elvis Presley, fully aware of his own iconic status. If you dared to confront Elvis, telling him to stop using drugs, you'd be promptly kicked out, regardless of how close you were to him. Can you imagine the audacity of telling the king of rock and roll to quit his pill habit? Elvis would retort, "If you can't get them for me, I'll just buy a whole drugstore." He wasn't joking. You simply didn't speak to him that way, and the Colonel knew better than to try. Handling Elvis was no small feat, McDonald acknowledged. He was extraordinary, genuinely a good person, but he was also very much aware of who he was. Confronting Elvis about his excessive pill use, that was a challenge in itself. In his book, McDonald details how for years, Parker refused to accept that Presley had a severe problem with prescription drugs. It wasn't until around mid-1973 that he recognized something was amiss with Elvis. McDonald also noted that Presley tried to manage his weight gain with diet pills, prescribed by Dr. Max Jacobson, known among celebrities as Dr. Feelgood. Elvis received enormous jars of pills from Jacobson in every imaginable color, shape, and size, offering a range of effects: to energize, to calm down, or to completely lose touch with reality. McDonald wrote, "These were potent, prescription-only medications." Reuters reported that in the last decade of Elvis Presley's life, his physician, Dr. George C. Nikopoulos, commonly referred to as Dr. Nick, issued thousands of doses of prescription drugs to the legendary singer. According to the news agency, Nikopoulos prescribed a range of painkillers to Presley, including Quaaludes, Demerol, codeine, Percodan, and Dilaudid, along with various stimulants and sedatives. In his book, MacDonald mentioned finding a bottle among Presley's prescriptions with a handwritten label stating, "To keep sanity." This hinted at the extent of Presley's reliance on these medications. MacDonald observed that Presley's drug use significantly affected his stage performances. He recounted instances where Presley slurred his lyrics, forgot the words, and even had to use cue cards to finish his songs, if he felt like completing them at all. Colonel Parker, exasperated, once exclaimed, "I've had it. I've tolerated this nonsense for years, but this crosses the line. No more. Either he gets his act together, or we're done. If he can't quit those damn pills, there's nothing left I can do. I don't need this mess. I'm quitting." However, Parker was still committed to helping Elvis, as MacDonald emphasized. Recalling a significant moment, MacDonald said, "The Colonel and I were in San Diego, where Elvis was performing. Billy Graham was also there with a 100-piece choir in front of about 50,000 people. On our way back, the Colonel had an epiphany. He said, Elvis's greatest love in life is gospel music. If he had a 100-piece choir like Billy Graham and focused solely on gospel music, it might just save his life." The Colonel realized that Elvis needed something more fulfilling than just the Las Vegas shows and the usual rock and roll tours. MacDonald reflected. He understood Elvis's deep passion for gospel music. It was his true love. The Colonel recognized the danger Elvis was in and believed that gospel music could be his salvation. Presley himself was keen to reconnect with his gospel roots. Tragically, he passed away before they could bring Parker's vision to life. Gospel was the essence of what Elvis adored, MacDonald said. He was genuinely excited about the idea. It gave him a sense of hope. Presley's life was cut short by a heart attack, likely induced by his addiction to prescription barbiturates. MacDonald emphasized that Presley was firmly against hard drugs. He observed that Presley probably didn't see himself as having a drug problem since the medications he used were doctor-prescribed, ostensibly to treat his various health issues. "I never witnessed him smoking pot or using any illegal drugs ever," he clarified. It was well known he took a lot of prescription drugs, but Elvis was adamantly against illegal substances. Despite his issues, I never actually saw him use drugs in all the years I knew him. I believe it was the prescription medications that ultimately led to his demise. The Tennessee Board of Medical Examiners later suspended and ultimately revoked Dr. Nikopoulos' medical license. This decision came after they concluded he had excessively prescribed addictive drugs to 13 patients, including Presley. In 1981, a jury cleared Nikopoulos of criminal charges alleging he had irresponsibly and carelessly prescribed drugs to Presley. In a 2009 interview with the Commercial Appeal, Nikopoulos expressed no regrets about the medications he prescribed, considering them necessary. Nikopoulos passed away in 2016 at the age of 88. MacDonald also pointed out, the Colonel wasn't involved with drugs or pills at all. The reason Elvis worked excessively was because of his lavish spending. He was always running a deficit at the bank. He didn't have the luxury to just take a month off. With substantial expenses and numerous employees relying on him, along with his generous nature, Elvis was financially strained. If you admired a car, he was the type who'd simply give it to you. He frequently reached out to the Colonel, saying, "We need to book something," MacDonald recounted. After getting calls from the bank, Elvis' father would also urge, "We need to raise some money." MacDonald then addressed a common narrative. People claim Elvis was worked to death, but that's simply not true. Throughout the years, Parker often reminisced about Presley, even in the months before his passing. According to MacDonald, Parker once confessed, "Not a day goes by that I don't think of him. Many days, I find myself in tears." He believed he did all he could, MacDonald said. He would have gone to any length for Elvis. He wept openly, but not many saw that side of him. And even amid the negative talk, he chose to remain silent. He wasn't the person many believe him to be. The Colonel was no swindler. He was genuinely concerned for Elvis and deeply loved him, MacDonald affirmed. He did his utmost. And Elvis, he was a good man, just one with many challenges. For more insights into the lives and secrets of the stars, don't forget to subscribe to Phesily. Join us as we unravel more mysteries of the celebrity world. Until next time, keep the legacy alive.